a waitress cautiously approached a wealthy man, urging him not to proceed with a significant business deal involving his closest friend. The following morning, a sleek, high-end car appeared near her modest home. William Parker adjusted his cufflinks as he surveyed the elegant, bustling cafe. It was meant to be a day of celebration. He and his longtime friend, Daniel, were on the brink of finalizing a monumental deal, a partnership that would secure their company's position at the top of the industry and promise them financial stability for years to come. The cafe was alive with quiet conversation, the clinking of silverware and the inviting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Everything seemed flawless, yet beneath the surface, tension was quietly building. "Daniel, I'll be back in just a moment," William said, rising from the polished mahogany table. Daniel, immersed in his phone, barely looked up, giving a half-hearted nod. William stepped away, feeling a rush of pride. Years of hard work and dedication had led him here. He and Daniel had built their empire together, and now they were on the cusp of reaching new heights. However, while William was away, the atmosphere around their table subtly shifted. Isabella, a young waitress who had been serving them, approached to refill Daniel's water. She had worked at the cafe for several months, always maintaining a low profile and never involving herself in the private conversations of the wealthy patrons. But today was different. As she neared, she caught a few chilling words that made her heart skip. Assuming no one was listening, Daniel was speaking quietly into his phone. His words struck Isabella like ice. "Everything's in place. William has no clue. Once this deal is signed, I'll control everything. By the time he realizes, it'll be too late. I've been planning this for months. The company, the assets, every bit of it will be mine." Isabella's hands trembled, nearly spilling the water as she backed away, her heart pounding. She couldn't believe what she had overheard. Daniel, supposedly William's closest friend and partner, was secretly plotting to take over everything they had built. She returned to the kitchen in shock, grappling with what she had just heard. It wasn't her problem, she was merely a waitress, after all. But her conscience wouldn't let her ignore it. Could she really walk away without warning him? Moments later, William returned to the table, unaware of the treacherous conversation that had occurred. Daniel greeted him with an easy smile, concealing his hidden agenda. Isabella observed from a distance, her thoughts racing. She had always been one to keep to herself, but this was different. She couldn't sit by and watch an innocent man be ruined by his closest friend. Summoning every ounce of courage, Isabella resolved to intervene. As Daniel excused himself to step outside for a call, Isabella seized the opportunity. Taking a deep breath, she approached William's table, feeling the weight of the moment pressing heavily on her. "Excuse me, sir," she whispered, her voice barely audible. William looked up, surprised that the waitress was speaking to him. "Yes?" he asked. Isabella hesitated, her heart racing, but there was no turning back. "I overheard something you need to know," she said, glancing nervously toward the door where Daniel had exited. William frowned, uncertain. "What are you talking about?" "Your friend, Daniel. I believe he's planning to betray you. I heard him talking on the phone, saying he's going to take everything from you once the deal is complete." William blinked, stunned by her revelation. His first instinct was disbelief. This was Daniel, his trusted friend of many years. Why would she even suggest something so outrageous? I'm sorry, what?" William asked, struggling to process her words, a mix of confusion and doubt creeping into his voice. "I know it sounds unbelievable, but I promise you I'm telling the truth," Isabella continued, her voice filled with urgency. "I overheard him say it. He's planning to take over your company and leave you with nothing." Gradually, William's initial shock gave way to suspicion. Could this truly be happening? Could it be possible that the man he trusted most was planning such a deep betrayal? He glanced toward the door where Daniel was still outside, a gnawing uncertainty beginning to unravel his trust. "You're certain about this?" he asked, his tone growing serious. Isabella nodded, her gaze unwavering with sincerity. "I wouldn't have told you if I wasn't. I couldn't let you go into that deal blind." William leaned back, his mind reeling. He had known Daniel since they were young. Together, they had built this business from scratch. The very thought that Daniel might betray him was almost unimaginable, but something in Isabella's demeanor struck him. She didn't appear to be lying. She seemed genuinely troubled. "Thank you," he finally said, his voice subdued. "I appreciate you telling me." With a nod, Isabella slipped away, leaving William alone with his racing thoughts. The anticipation of the day had suddenly turned fragile, on the brink of collapse. He looked at the contract on the table, torn. If Isabella was right, Signing this deal could be the biggest mistake of his life. He needed to be certain, he needed to discover the truth. And as Daniel re-entered the cafe, smiling as if nothing had happened, William knew one thing beyond a doubt: he could trust no one, not even his best friend, without verifying the facts. William Parker sat at the table, his mind tangled with a mess of doubt and confusion. He watched as Daniel returned, a carefree smile on his face, as if nothing had shifted, as if William's whole world hadn't been turned upside down. Isabella's words echoed in William's mind. He's planning to take over your company and leave you with nothing. It was impossible to reconcile this accusation with the man now sitting across from him. All good? Daniel asked casually, taking his seat again, seemingly unaware of the storm brewing within William. William forced a smile, despite the knot in his stomach. Yeah, just running through the deal in my head. You know how it is, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Daniel nodded, taking a leisurely sip of water. I get it. Big decisions, but we've been aiming for this moment for years. It's time to make it official. William nodded absently, eyes fixed on the papers laid out before him. Years of work and dedication were poured into their shared vision, and now they were on the verge of taking it to new heights. But Isabella's words, coming from someone who had no reason to lie, had unsettled him to his core. Could Daniel, his friend and business partner, truly be capable of such a betrayal? The thought gnawed at him. They had been through everything together. William wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding, or that Isabella had somehow misheard. But the urgency in her voice, the honesty in her gaze, made it impossible to dismiss. I think I need a little more time, William said slowly, his gaze still locked on the contract. Daniel's brows knit together briefly. More time. William, we've been over this deal for weeks. We're ready. I know, William replied in a measured tone, but I just want to make sure every detail is in order. No harm in double-checking, right? For a moment, something flickered across Daniel's face. Was it frustration? Annoyance? William couldn't quite place it, but it was enough to stoke the doubt now smoldering in his mind. Of course, Daniel said, but his smile seemed forced, his eyes lacking warmth. Whatever you need. I just think we're in a good place. This deal could change everything for us. William smiled, but it felt strained. Exactly. Which is why I need to be sure. Daniel leaned back, seemingly unfazed, though William sensed a subtle shift in his demeanor. Take your time, but don't wait too long. Opportunities like this, they don't come around every day. William nodded, his decision forming more solidly. He wouldn't sign anything until he had more information. I'll let you know soon, he said, standing up to leave. Daniel remained seated, that same smile still plastered on his face, but William felt a chill, a tension between them that hadn't been there before. The camaraderie that had once defined their partnership now felt shadowed, tainted by suspicion. Walking out of the cafe into the cool evening air, William's thoughts swirled with suspicion, disbelief, and a rising sense of dread. He didn't want to believe his closest friend could betray him. Yet he knew he couldn't afford to ignore this warning. Too much was at stake. As he approached the cafe entrance, he saw Isabella waiting by the door, looking anxious. She met his gaze, her lip caught between her teeth as she asked, "Did you talk to him?" William paused, hesitant to share too much. I didn't sign anything, but I need to look deeper. Isabella exhaled in relief. I was so worried. I didn't know if you'd believe me. William studied her, curiosity edging into his thoughts. Why did you tell me? She looked down, collecting herself before meeting his eyes. I know it wasn't my place, I'm just a waitress. But after hearing what he said, I couldn't let you go through with it blindly. It just didn't seem right. Her honesty caught William off guard. She had risked something by telling him, and it was clear she had no personal gain in doing so. Her concern for him seemed genuine, and that only deepened his inner conflict. Thank you, he said finally. You may have saved me from making a terrible mistake. Isabella shifted awkwardly, clearly unaccustomed to such attention. I'm just glad I could help. Still weighed down by the day's events, William knew he needed more than just her warning to act. He needed concrete proof. I'm going to hire someone to investigate, William murmured, mostly to himself. I can't make any big moves until I know for sure. Isabella looked relieved that he was taking her seriously. That's probably wise. I hope it's not true, for your sake. William managed a tight smile. Me too. Walking away, William scrolled through his contacts, searching for someone who could help him get to the bottom of this. One name came to mind, a private investigator he trusted, Liam. William dialed, waiting as the line connected. Liam, it's William Parker, he said when the familiar voice answered. I need your expertise. There's something going on and I need your help. Over the next few minutes, William explained what he'd heard from Isabella and his rising concerns about Daniel. Liam listened intently, asking sharp, pointed questions, and agreed to dig into Daniel's finances immediately. I'll get back to you in a couple of days, Liam assured him. William ended the call, a mixture of relief and anxiety settling in. He had taken the first step toward the truth, but now, he faced the hardest part waiting. As William Parker headed back to his car, he found himself glancing over his shoulder, half expecting Daniel to burst out of the cafe, demanding an explanation. But the door remained closed, the street quiet and empty. For now, William was left in the dark, but he knew it wouldn't be long before he uncovered everything. The following days passed in a haze of restless anticipation for William. Every exchange with Daniel felt loaded, every word weighted with added. It was as if each casual comment could be a clue, part of the scheme that Isabella had warned him about. Yet, Daniel continued his charming, friendly act, never revealing a trace of deception. If he was indeed plotting behind William's back, he was doing a masterful job concealing it. Meanwhile, William's trusted private investigator, Liam, had begun delving into Daniel's financial records. In the past, William had only involved Liam in delicate business affairs a few times, but Liam's thoroughness had proven invaluable each time. This time, William knew Liam's diligence was crucial. Despite the tension building up within him, William tried to act as if nothing had changed. He met Daniel for routine meetings, attended board gatherings, and even went out for drinks with him, keeping up appearances. But all the while, suspicion buzzed in his mind and he watched Daniel intently for any slight slip, any sign that Isabella's warning held truth. Yet Daniel remained the same easygoing, affable man William had known, which only deepened his inner conflict. On the third day, Liam called. I've uncovered something, he said, his voice steady but serious. William, seated at his desk, immediately sat up straighter. What did you find? There are some irregularities in Daniel's personal accounts, Liam explained. Several unexplained transfers over the past months. He's been funneling money into an offshore account. While that isn't illegal in itself, the timing raises red flags. It coincides with when you both started discussing this new venture. William felt a knot tightening in his chest. How substantial are these transfers? Not massive, but significant enough to make one question his motives, Liam replied. It's clear he's been setting something up on the side. William exhaled, rubbing his temples. Do you think it's connected to what Isabella overheard? Highly possible, Liam replied. People don't start moving funds offshore on a whim, especially not discreetly. It's often done to hide something or to prepare for a big move. My guess is he's positioning himself for a major play once this deal goes through. William closed his eyes, the weight of the situation pressing on him. Isabella had been right. Daniel was indeed plotting something, and from Liam's findings it was far worse than William had initially feared. Keep digging, Liam, William instructed, his voice resolute. I need more than just suspicions, I need hard evidence. I'll keep you posted, Liam assured him before hanging up. William put down the phone, his gaze drifting to the large window overlooking City North Star. The view, once a source of inspiration, now felt empty as his mind raced. How had it come to this? Daniel had been by his side through every hardship, every victory. They'd built this empire from the ground up, celebrating triumphs and weathering losses together. And yet, it seemed that Daniel had been planning his betrayal for months, quietly moving funds in preparation for a takeover. Anger began to simmer in William's chest. He had entrusted Daniel with everything. The idea that his best friend would turn on him just to claim a larger stake in the company was nearly unthinkable. Nearly. The resentment burned hotter as he recalled Daniel's words from the cafe, the casual, assured tone in which he had plotted to seize everything from William. Had Daniel always harbored envy, quietly planning William's downfall while pretending to be his closest ally? That evening, William met with Daniel for dinner, a regular arrangement that had always been a chance to discuss business in a relaxed setting. But tonight, William's heart hammered under the weight of what he now knew. Daniel was already seated when William arrived, greeting him with his usual easy smile. But as William sat down, he saw his friend through a different lens. Daniel was no longer his trusted companion. He was the man scheming to take it all. They exchanged pleasantries, talked about the day's events, and discussed potential leads. Daniel, as always, was charming and persuasive, speaking optimistically about their future as if nothing had changed. So, where are we on the deal? Daniel asked casually in between bites of steak, still on track for the original timeline. William paused, studying Daniel before responding. I'm reviewing a few things, he said, keeping his tone neutral. I just want to ensure everything's aligned before we sign. A fleeting expression crossed Daniel's face. Was it frustration? Annoyance? William couldn't be certain. But then, Daniel's smile returned, as smooth as ever. Of course, Daniel replied. Take your time. I just wouldn't want us to miss out on this golden opportunity. William nodded, his face giving nothing away, though his insides churned with anger. How could Daniel sit there, feigning concern while planning to rob him of everything they'd built? The rest of the dinner passed without incident, but William's resolve solidified. He wouldn't confront Daniel just yet, not until Liam had more concrete evidence. But he knew in his heart that the friendship he had cherished was over. There was no coming back from this. That night, as William lay in bed, unable to sleep, he thought of Isabella. Her warning had saved him from the greatest mistake of his life. But now he had to find a way to protect everything he held dear without giving away his suspicions too soon. Daniel was playing a dangerous game, and William needed to be ready for whatever lay ahead. The following morning, William awoke with a weight in his chest, heavier than it had been the night before. He replayed every moment of his recent dinner with Daniel, examining every smile, every reassurance, every hint of impatience. How long had Daniel been planning this? William's thoughts were consumed by the man who had once been his greatest ally, but was now his greatest adversary. By midday, Liam called, and William's pulse quickened as he answered. Liam's tone was calm yet urgent. I've uncovered more. I think we're looking at the whole picture now. William leaned forward in his chair, heart pounding. What did you find? There's been a pattern of small, carefully orchestrated transactions over the past year, money siphoned from the company in just the right amounts to avoid raising flags internally. He's been funneling these funds into a personal offshore account. By now he's already taken more than you'd think. How much? William's voice was tight with tension. Millions, William, Liam replied bluntly. Nearly 5 million, all hidden in accounts that would have been hard to track if we hadn't caught this early. He's been planning this meticulously for a long time. The floor seemed to drop out from beneath William. $5 million, a staggering betrayal, not just in monetary terms but in the calculated nature of it. Daniel had been planning his move incrementally for over a year. William Parker sat rigidly at his desk, listening intently as Liam, his investigator, laid out the damning evidence. It was not just a moment of seizing an opportunity. Daniel had been meticulously orchestrating William's downfall from the shadows all along. Liam continued, his tone serious and firm. William, there's more. I've uncovered conversations that suggest Daniel has been liaising with some of your biggest competitors. He's positioning himself for a significant move, possibly to seize control of the company once this deal goes through. If you had signed those papers, you'd be handing him everything. A chill ran down William's spine. The signs had been there, subtle and woven into the background of their partnership, but he had ignored them, choosing instead to rely on years of friendship and trust. Daniel had been scheming for months, building his network, quietly redirecting funds and setting up the perfect conditions for a hostile takeover. William, you need to move swiftly, Liam urged, his voice firm. This isn't just some reckless gamble, this is a calculated and premeditated act of fraud. If you don't act now, he's going to strike. William's knuckles turned white as he gripped the edge of his desk. What's our next move? He asked, though his mind was already racing ahead, formulating a plan. Liam maintained a calm professionalism. First, you need to freeze his accounts. The evidence we have more than justifies it. Then, confront him, but do so strategically. Don't let him know everything you're aware of until you're ready to force his hand. William nodded, his mind already processing the logistics of this next phase. I'll reach out to my legal team immediately. The company's security comes first. Good, Liam affirmed. I'll send over all the documentation we've gathered. You'll have everything you need for legal action. When the call ended, William leaned back, staring blankly at the ceiling. The weight of the situation pressed down on him like an anchor. Daniel, the man he had once trusted implicitly, had been meticulously plotting his betrayal. He could feel the rage simmering just beneath the surface, but he knew he had to stay level-headed. Daniel wasn't just a friend turned adversary, he was a worthy opponent who had been carefully planning each move. But now, for the first time, William had the advantage. He swiftly called his legal team, sharing the details of what Liam had uncovered. His attorneys promptly began drafting the paperwork to freeze Daniel's accounts, ensuring he couldn't access any more funds. For a brief moment, William felt a glimmer of relief. He had acted quickly enough to halt Daniel's plans, at least for now. But the satisfaction was fleeting. He knew the hardest part was yet to come. Confronting Daniel would be the ultimate test, and William was acutely aware of his former friend's manipulative prowess. As the day progressed, William's resolve only solidified. He would confront Daniel, but he would do it on his terms. A year of hidden deceit and betrayal required careful handling. He had to be prepared for anything. That evening, William set up a meeting with Daniel at a private office space they frequently used for confidential conversations. The setting felt neutral, yet fitting for the confrontation ahead. Daniel arrived on time, his demeanor as friendly as ever, wearing that same easygoing charm that now felt like venom. "Hey, Will," Daniel greeted him with a broad smile as he walked in. "Been thinking about this deal, how close we are to making it official." William forced himself to remain calm, gesturing toward the chairs. "Take a seat. We need to have a serious talk." Daniel's smile wavered as he took his seat, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. "What's going on? Something wrong?" For a long, silent moment, William just looked at him. The weight of shared memories clashed with the cold reality that the man sitting across from him had been quietly plotting against him. It was surreal, almost unbelievable. "I know everything, Daniel," William finally said, his voice steady but carrying a razor's edge. "The offshore accounts. The stolen money. The plans you've been laying behind my back." Daniel's face went pale, but he quickly tried to cover it, leaning back in his chair with a forced smirk. "Will, you've been working too hard. Sounds like you're imagining things." William's gaze narrowed. "I hired an investigator, Daniel. We have every transfer, every communication. You've been planning this for over a year." The tension thickened. Daniel's confident facade cracked just slightly, exposing the truth behind his mask. William could see him calculating his next move, searching for a way out. "I trusted you, Daniel," William said, his voice laced with both anger and disbelief. "We built this company side by side, and here you are, siphoning funds, positioning yourself to take it all. How long have you been scheming?" Daniel crossed his arms, attempting a facade of calm indifference. "You're blowing things out of proportion, Will. Whatever you think you've uncovered, it's not what it looks like." William let out a bitter laugh, stunned that Daniel would still try to manipulate him. "Not what it looks like. I've seen the transfers, millions moved into offshore accounts. You've been making deals with our competitors right under my nose. This isn't a misunderstanding. You were planning to take over the company and leave me with nothing." Daniel's expression turned icy, his usual charm falling away. "Fine, you want the truth?" he sneered. "Yeah, I've been planning this. What choice did I have? I've spent years in your shadow, doing the grunt work while you get all the glory. You're the one everyone praises, and I'm the one they ignore. I deserve more." William stared at him, a wave of disgust and disbelief rising within him. "This is about your ego. You think you're entitled to more, so you decide to steal from me. From everything we've built." Daniel's frustration erupted, his voice a bitter hiss. "It's not about stealing, it's about fairness. I've given just as much to this company as you have, but you're the one everyone respects. I'm just the invisible partner, standing in your shadow. I'm done with that." William's anger flared. "You think that justifies stealing millions, destroying everything we've accomplished together? I would have been willing to talk, to work something out if you felt overlooked. But you chose betrayal instead." Daniel's eyes flashed with resentment. "Talk? You wouldn't have changed anything. You've always kept me at arm's length, and I wasn't going to wait any longer. I deserve more, and I was going to take it." William shook his head in disbelief. "Unbelievable. All this because of envy. I never once thought of you as less than a partner. But you," he trailed off, the depth of betrayal cutting through him like a blade. "You've destroyed everything." Daniel's face darkened, his voice dropping to a venomous tone. "You don't understand. I had no choice. I've waited too long. This deal was my chance to finally get what I deserve." William stood, his fists clenched. "No, Daniel. You were going to get nothing. You thought you could take over, but I've frozen the accounts. I have the evidence, and I won't let you dismantle what we've built." Daniel's eyes widened in shock. "You what?" "I've already notified the legal team," William replied coldly. "Your accounts are frozen. You won't access another cent." For the first time, William saw true fear in Daniel's eyes. He stood up abruptly, his voice rising. "You can't do this. This was my only chance. I've put too much into this plan." William remained unmoved, his voice calm but resolute. It's over, Daniel. You've betrayed me, this company, and yourself. And there's no coming back from that. Daniel's expression twisted with rage. You think you've won? Freezing my accounts isn't enough. I have connections, Will. You don't know who you're dealing with. William met his gaze unshaken. I know exactly who I'm dealing with. And I'm not afraid of you or your so-called connections. You're finished. Daniel took a step back, his bravado crumbling as the reality set in. His years of planning, his intricate scheme, it was all collapsing. He was trapped, and he knew it. You'll regret this, he muttered, his voice dripping with hatred. You'll regret ever coming after me. William didn't flinch. The only regret I have is trusting you, thinking you were ever a friend. With one last venomous look, Daniel stormed out, leaving William alone in the silent office. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on him, yet there was also an undeniable sense of relief. He had taken the first steps to secure his company, to protect his legacy, but the cost had been greater than he'd ever anticipated. He sank into his chair, his head in his hands. The betrayal cut deep, but he couldn't afford to dwell on it. He had to keep moving forward, to rebuild what Daniel had tried to tear apart. As William Parker sat quietly in the room, he sensed the shift in the air as the door opened, revealing Isabella Hayes. She had been waiting outside, intuitively aware that something significant was taking place. With an expression full of concern, she moved cautiously towards him. William? She asked softly, her voice carrying both warmth and unease. Looking up, William's face showed the weariness of recent events but also a new resolve. It's done. Daniel is gone, he replied, the weight of those words sinking in. Isabella hesitated, then settled into a chair across from him. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice laced with empathy. William nodded slowly, allowing himself a moment of vulnerability. I should have seen it coming. I trusted him, and he turned on me. Gently, Isabella placed her hand on his arm. You did what you had to do, William. You stopped him before it was too late. Taking a deep breath, William tried to release some of the tension he'd been carrying. Because of you, he replied, gratitude softening his tone. She offered a small smile. I'm just glad I could help. They sat in silence, letting the gravity of the situation settle around them. William knew the path forward wouldn't be easy. He would face legal battles, manage the fallout from Daniel's actions, and work to rebuild the company's reputation. Yet, for the first time in days, William felt a flicker of hope. With Isabella by his side, he wasn't facing this fight alone. The following morning, William sat at his desk, reflecting on the events of the day before. Daniel's betrayal was exposed, and his plan to seize control of the company had been dismantled. Though a great burden had been lifted, the sting of betrayal lingered like a shadow over him. Staring out at the city North Star, he couldn't shake one thought from his mind, Isabella. The young woman who had risked everything to warn him. Without her intervention, he might have signed the deal, unknowingly handing his legacy to Daniel. She had saved him from losing everything. Realizing he couldn't move forward without properly acknowledging Isabella's bravery, William knew he had to express his gratitude in more than words. Her courage had changed the course of his life, and he wanted to repay her in a meaningful way. William picked up his phone and called the cafe where she worked. When the manager answered, William inquired about Isabella's schedule. Upon learning she wasn't working that day, he decided he would thank her in person. That afternoon, William drove to the modest neighborhood where Isabella lived. The area was a far cry from the opulence he was used to. Small, tidy homes lined narrow streets, and aging cars were parked along the curb. The scene reminded him that not everyone inhabited a world of power and luxury. Stepping out of his car, William approached the modest, weather-worn house Isabella shared with her mother. Feeling an unexpected wave of nervousness, he knocked on the door, hoping she would understand the reason behind his visit. After a few moments, the door opened and Isabella stood there, clearly surprised to see him. Mr. Parker? She asked, a mix of curiosity and confusion in her expression. What brings you here? Offering a gentle smile, William replied, I came to thank you properly. Isabella moved aside, inviting him in. You didn't have to go to all this trouble. As he stepped inside, William took in the cozy, well-maintained space. The furniture showed signs of wear, and a faint aroma of herbal tea lingered in the air. Her home was worlds away from his own, but it only deepened his respect for the obstacles she had likely overcome. She led him into a small living room where they settled on an old, comfortable couch. Isabella's expression was guarded, unsure of what to expect. I've had a lot on my mind lately, William began, his tone genuine. And I realized that without your warning, I would have lost everything. You didn't have to get involved, but you did. That means more to me than I can put into words. Shifting uncomfortably, Isabella responded, I only did what anyone else would have done. I couldn't stand by and let him deceive you. Shaking his head, William replied, No, Isabella. Not everyone would have spoken up. Many people would have kept quiet, thinking it wasn't their place. But you took a risk, and because of that, you saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Isabella's cheeks flushed slightly, but her humility remained evident. I just did what felt right. William smiled, feeling an immense sense of gratitude. I want to repay you for that courage. I remember you telling me that you had to give up school to care for your mother. I'd like to help you finish your education, if that's still something you want. Her eyes widened in astonishment. You mean, you'd help me go back to school? Nodding, William continued. I know you're passionate about economics, and I believe you have remarkable potential. I want you to have the chance to complete what you started. And, if you're interested, I'd also like to offer you a position at my company. You've already shown good instincts, and I could use someone like you on my team. Overwhelmed, Isabella looked at him, her gratitude shining through her disbelief. I don't know what to say. This is more than I ever dreamed of. You've earned it, William replied warmly. You helped me when you didn't have to. This is my way of saying thank you. Tears welled up in Isabella's eyes, and she quickly blinked them away, trying to maintain her composure. I can't thank you enough, Mr. Parker. This means everything to me. William reached out, gently placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You don't need to thank me, Isabella. Just embrace this opportunity and make the most of it. I believe in you. Still moved by the unexpected generosity, Isabella nodded. I will, I promise. As he rose to leave, William felt a profound sense of lightness. He had fulfilled a personal debt, not just with an offer, but by giving back to someone who had selflessly helped him. Pausing at the door, he looked back at her. I'll have my team get in touch with you about the details, he said, but for now, focus on your family and consider what you'd like to do next. Isabella smiled, her eyes still glistening. Thank you, Mr. Parker. I'll never forget this. With a final nod, William stepped outside into the cool evening air. As he walked back to his car, a newfound peace settled over him. For the first time since Daniel's betrayal, he felt as though he was truly moving forward. Isabella's courage had transformed his world, and now he had given her the chance to shape hers. It wasn't just about repaying a debt. It was about extending gratitude to someone who had lifted him when he needed it most. That, above all else, brought him a lasting sense of fulfillment. In the days following William Parker's visit to Isabella Hayes's home, both their lives began to shift in unexpected ways. Isabella found herself reflecting on the remarkable opportunity William had offered her. Returning to school had always been a distant dream ever since she'd put her education on hold to care for her mother. Now that dream was within reach, and the idea of working at William's company felt like a chance she never thought possible. Yet, as excited as she was, Isabella couldn't help but feel hesitant. She had grown used to staying in the background, helping others without drawing attention to herself. Stepping into this new world thrilled her and terrified her. Meanwhile, William had already spoken to his team, making sure everything was in place for Isabella to start whenever she was ready. He understood it was a big decision and he wanted her to feel no rush. But deep down, he was certain she would accept. He'd seen the ambition in her eyes and knew she had the potential to excel. A week later, Isabella made her decision. William was in his office, buried in paperwork, when his assistant buzzed him. Mr. Parker, Isabella Hayes is here to see you. A sense of anticipation stirred in William. Send her in. When the door opened, Isabella stepped inside, her expression a blend of nerves and resolve. William rose, greeting her with a warm smile. Isabella, it's good to see you, he said, gesturing for her to sit. How have you been feeling? Isabella took a seat, clasping her hands together. I've thought a lot about your offer, she began, her voice steady but laced with excitement, and I've decided to accept it, the chance to go back to school and the position at your company. William's smile widened. I'm glad you've decided to join us. I had a feeling you'd make this choice. Letting out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, Isabella nodded. It's a bit overwhelming, honestly. I never imagined myself in a position like this. He nodded, understanding. It's a big change, but you've already shown you have the skills. Your instincts are sharp, and your background in economics will be an asset to the team. And for school, we'll ensure you have the flexibility to manage both commitments. A grateful smile crossed Isabella's face. Thank you, Mr. Parker. This means more to me than you know. William leaned in slightly, his expression both serious and encouraging. I want you to know, Isabella, this isn't just about returning a favor. I see real potential in you. You've shown poise and intelligence when it mattered most. I'm confident that with the right support, you'll thrive here. Hearing this stirred something in Isabella. No one had ever placed such faith in her abilities. It was daunting but deeply inspiring, and William's belief in her gave her the strength to rise above her doubts. I won't let you down, she said, her voice filled with determination. William smiled, clearly satisfied. I have no doubt you'll succeed. We'll get the paperwork started for your school enrollment, and in the meantime, we'll begin integrating you into the company. You'll have a mentor assigned to help you get settled, and I'll be here to support you whenever you need it. Isabella nodded, feeling the significance of the moment. She was about to embark on a new chapter, one brimming with possibility. There was still a bit of fear, but it was overshadowed by a sense of purpose and excitement. After discussing the details of her new role and her school plans, Isabella stood to leave. She felt lighter, as if a tremendous weight had been lifted. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to dream. Turning back at the door, she said softly, Thank you, Mr. Parker, for everything. William gave her a kind smile. You've earned this, Isabella. Welcome to the team. Over the following weeks, Isabella stepped fully into her new journey. The leap from waitress to corporate employee felt overwhelming at first, but William's company proved to be a welcoming place. Her co-workers were supportive, and her mentor, Julie, took her under her wing from day one. Julie was patient, wise, and always ready to answer questions, no matter how small. Initially, Isabella wrestled with the challenges of adapting. The corporate environment was nothing like the cafe. There were complex hierarchies, financial reports to analyze, and strategic planning sessions to follow. Yet with each day, Isabella grew more confident. She absorbed knowledge eagerly, applying her background in economics and impressing her peers with her insight. In the meantime, William watched her progress closely. He saw her thriving, and it reassured him that he'd made the right choice. Isabella was no longer just the brave young woman who had warned him of Daniel's betrayal. She was becoming an invaluable asset to the company. Behind the scenes, William's legal team continued to untangle the remnants of Daniel's deception. The company's funds were secure and Daniel's offshore accounts had been frozen, but there remained a lot to resolve. William knew it would be a long, exhausting process. However, with Isabella's support, he felt more prepared for the journey ahead. One evening, after a long day, Isabella stayed late to work on a project for Julie. The office was quiet, with most of the team having left. As she sat reviewing financial reports, a sense of fulfillment settled over her. She was exactly where she was meant to be. Just as she was packing up, William walked by, surprised to see her still at her desk. Isabella, you're still here? He asked, amusement evident in his tone. Looking up, she smiled. Just finishing up some work for Julie. William chuckled. You don't have to stay this late every night, you know. She shrugged, her smile widening. I don't mind. I actually enjoy it. He leaned against the doorframe, observing her for a moment. You're doing an exceptional job, Isabella. I hope you know that. A flush of pride warmed her cheeks. Thank you, Mr. Parker. That means a lot coming from you. He nodded, standing up straight. Just don't forget to take time for yourself, too. She smiled and nodded as he walked away, watching him go with a deep sense of gratitude. William had given her this chance and believed in her when no one else had. Gathering her things, Isabella felt a surge of excitement. This was only the beginning, and for the first time in years, she felt certain that she could achieve anything she set her mind to. In the weeks that followed, Isabella Hayes found her rhythm at the company. She arrived early each day, eager to take on new challenges, and stayed late, driven by an insatiable desire to grow. The opportunity William Parker had offered her was a once-in-a-lifetime chance, and she was determined to make the most of it. Nothing would stand in her way. As days turned into weeks, Isabella's impact on the team grew more evident. Her mentor, Julie, guided her through the nuances of corporate finance and operations, helping her grasp the complexity of her role. Under Julie's mentorship, Isabella quickly became adept at dissecting financial reports, pinpointing issues and proposing innovative solutions others hadn't considered. Her unique perspective and natural acumen set her apart. You're truly talented, Isabella, Julie remarked one afternoon as they reviewed a complex financial forecast. It's as if you've been doing this for years. Isabella felt a swell of pride at the acknowledgement. I suppose I'm just motivated to prove myself, she replied with a smile. Julie shook her head reassuringly. You don't need to prove a thing. You've already shown you belong here. The work you've done is exceptional. Julie's encouragement struck a chord. Isabella had spent years feeling like she was lagging behind. Now, for the first time, she felt she was on equal ground, capable of achieving anything she set her mind to. Although corporate life was worlds apart from her days as a waitress, Isabella had found her stride. Her background in economics gave her a unique vantage point, and her ideas regularly brought fresh insights to the team. William, too, began to lean on her insights, seeking her perspective during strategy sessions and genuinely valuing her input. One day, William asked her to join him in his office for a private conversation. Entering his office, Isabella felt a mix of excitement and nerves. Although they had developed a comfortable rapport, she still held a sense of reverence for him, the man who had not only given her a second chance but entrusted her with such responsibility. Isabella, William began, leaning back in his chair and motioning for her to sit. I've been reviewing your work over the past few weeks, and I must say, I'm impressed. Isabella's heart raced. Thank you, Mr. Parker. I've been doing my best. He smiled warmly. You've done more than that. Your perspective and ability to spot issues before they escalate have saved us more than once. You have a genuine gift for this. She felt a surge of gratitude. That truly means a lot coming from you. William's smile grew. I'm glad to hear that. I've been considering ways to expand your role. You've shown you're more than capable, and I'd like to see you take on a leadership position. Isabella blinked, taken aback. A leadership position? William nodded. Yes. I want you to lead a new project we're launching, expanding into a new market. You'll work directly with me, crafting the strategy, managing financials, and overseeing the rollout. It's a significant role, but I believe you're ready for it. Isabella's mind raced. This leadership role was far more than she had anticipated, especially so soon. The opportunity was both exhilarating and intimidating. I don't know what to say, she stammered, struggling to process it all. William leaned forward, his expression resolute yet encouraging. I wouldn't be offering this if I had any doubts. You've earned it, Isabella. You have the vision, the skills, and the dedication to make this project a success. After a pause, as she absorbed the magnitude of the opportunity, Isabella looked up and saw the faith in William's eyes. His confidence in her lit a fire within, allowing her to push past her doubts. I'd be honored to take on the project, she said, her voice brimming with determination. I won't let you down. William's satisfied smile said it all. I know you won't. We'll start planning next week. For now, take the weekend to rest. You've earned it. Isabella nodded, still processing everything as she left his office. This chance to lead a major project was a leap she hadn't anticipated, but she felt ready to meet the challenge head-on. In the days that followed, Isabella dove into preparations for the new project. She collaborated closely with William and Julie, gathering data, studying market trends, and mapping out a comprehensive strategy. This project was ambitious, a push into international markets with the potential to drastically boost revenue, albeit with a slew of challenges. It didn't take long for Isabella to realize the scope of her task. From regulatory complexities to cultural differences and financial risks, every detail demanded her attention. But rather than feeling daunted, she felt invigorated. Each new hurdle spurred her forward, fueling her resolve. As the project advanced, Isabella began to understand the broader workings of the company on a global level. She was learning more than she had ever imagined, and with William's mentorship, she grew increasingly assured in her decisions. Their bond strengthened as they navigated the project's intricacies, fostering a mutual respect and trust. One evening, after a long day of meetings, William pulled Isabella aside. They stood by the tall office windows, the setting sun casting warm hues across the city North Star skyline. I wanted to say something, Isabella, William began, his tone uncharacteristically earnest. Isabella looked up, curious. What is it? He hesitated for a moment, as if carefully choosing his words. I've been reflecting on these past months, all we've endured, from Daniel's betrayal to the work we've done to protect the company, to this new project. I couldn't have managed any of it without you. Isabella was taken aback. I'm just doing my part, Mr. Parker. William shook his head gently. No, you've done far more than that. You've shown you're not just any employee, you're a leader. I want you to know how deeply I value your contribution. A surge of emotion filled Isabella. She had never envisioned herself standing here side by side with William, helping to shape the company's future. It was more than she had ever dared to dream. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice thick with gratitude. "That means a lot to me." William's smile was warm, his eyes full of appreciation. "You've earned every bit of recognition, and I look forward to seeing what we achieve together." Isabella nodded, absorbing the weight of his words. She understood that there were still challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long while, she felt truly equipped to face them. Together they turned to watch the sunset, aware that a new, promising chapter was just beginning. In the days following William Parker's visit to Isabella Hayes's home, the expansion project under her leadership took off faster than anyone had anticipated. With William's guidance, the company was making impressive progress toward entering international markets. Challenges arose each day, but Isabella welcomed them, buoyed by the confidence she'd built and the support of her team. But just as William and Isabella felt the momentum of their hard-earned success, an unwelcome disruption emerged: Daniel. Since their last bitter encounter, William hadn't heard from Daniel, assuming his former friend had left town quietly. While the legal battles continued, William had almost put him out of his mind. That was until one morning he arrived at his office to find a somber security officer waiting by his door. "Mr. Parker, I think you'll want to see this," the officer said, handing William a sealed envelope. William's brow furrowed as he took the envelope, his name printed in stark letters across the front. Inside, he felt the weight of something small and metallic, a USB drive. He slid it into his palm, his pulse quickening. "Where did this come from?" William asked. "It was dropped at the front desk this morning," the officer explained. "No return address, just your name." William's mind began to race. It had been months since Daniel's betrayal. While his legal team managed the frozen accounts and other fallout, William had moved on. But as he held the USB drive, he couldn't ignore the creeping feeling that this was Daniel's doing. "Thank you," William said quietly, dismissing the officer. He quickly made his way into his office, his thoughts tangled. Closing the door behind him, William sat at his desk, his gaze fixed on the drive. Should he open it or contact Liam, his investigator, first? After a moment's hesitation, he decided to see for himself. He plugged the drive into his computer, watching as a single video file appeared. Heart pounding, he clicked on it. The screen flickered to life, displaying a grainy video of Daniel seated in a nondescript hotel room. Wearing a smug expression, he leaned back and addressed the camera directly. "William," Daniel's voice oozed disdain. "By now, you're probably thinking you've won. You froze my accounts, cut me off from the company, and ruined everything I built. But here's the thing, you didn't destroy me. Not even close." William's jaw tightened as anger surged through him. "I've still got moves to make," Daniel continued, his smirk widening. "And I've been busy since our little fallout. You think you can just walk away clean? I don't think so. I've gathered information enough to ruin you, your precious company, and everything you've worked for. You might have blindsided me once, but now I'm ready." William's fists clenched as Daniel's words hit home. What information could Daniel possibly have? Could it be true? Or was this another one of his twisted games? Daniel leaned closer to the camera, his face darkening. "I've made connections, William, powerful ones. And I'm not just talking about business. You should check the headlines soon. When the media gets hold of what I have, your so-called reputation will be in shambles." The video cut off, leaving William staring at the screen in shock. His thoughts spun. What could Daniel have on him? William had always been meticulous, keeping his dealings above board. But Daniel was shrewd. If he'd found anything remotely damaging, even if it was fabricated, the consequences could be devastating. William sank back in his chair, his breathing heavy as the reality settled. Daniel had returned, and he wasn't playing fair. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. Daniel was out to wreck William's reputation through the media, a new kind of warfare that threatened everything William had worked so hard to build. Not wasting another second, William grabbed his phone and dialed Liam. "Liam, it's William. We have a serious problem," he said, his voice taut with urgency. "What's going on?" Liam replied, immediately attuned to William's tone. "It's Daniel. He just sent me a video threatening to go public with something potentially damaging. Says he's gathered information on me and plans to leak it." Liam was silent for a beat. Then his voice returned, calm and focused. "All right, let's approach this carefully. First, send me the video. I'll have my team analyze it and see if there's any way to trace where it was filmed. We need to locate him and get a sense of his intentions." William nodded, even though Liam couldn't see him. I'll send it over right away. Good. And don't engage with him directly. He's baiting you, hoping you'll react. The more composed and strategic we stay, the better our chances of stopping him before he does real damage. William hung up, immediately forwarding the video to Liam. He leaned back in his chair, trying to steady his breathing. Daniel was dangerous, and now, more than ever, William had to stay a step ahead. But this was more than a business dispute. Daniel was out for vengeance, and he wouldn't stop until William was brought down. As the hours passed, William worked closely with his legal team and Liam's investigators to prepare for anything Daniel might attempt. Despite their efforts, they couldn't predict his next move. The uncertainty gnawed at William, making it impossible to focus on much else. Later that evening, as William sat alone in his office, Isabella knocked softly on the door. "William," she asked, stepping inside when he waved her in. "I heard something's going on. Are you okay?" William sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's Daniel. He's back, and he's threatening to go public with something. I don't know what he has, but it could be bad." Isabella's face fell, her concern evident. "I thought he was gone for good." "So did I," William replied, his voice tense. "But I misjudged him." Isabella took a seat across from him, her eyes searching his face. "Is there anything I can do to help?" William looked at her, gratitude filling his gaze. She had stood by him through everything, and now, more than ever, he needed allies he could trust. "Just keep doing what you're doing," he said. "I'm handling it, but I may need your support if this escalates." Isabella nodded, her expression resolute. "You can count on me, William. Whatever comes, we'll face it together." William gave her a grateful smile. "Thank you, Isabella. That means a lot." As Isabella left his office, William turned his gaze out to the city North Star's twinkling lights in the dark. Daniel might have returned with a vengeance, but William wouldn't let him win, not this time. He was prepared for whatever battle lay ahead. In the tense days that followed Daniel's threat, William Parker found little rest, his mind endlessly looping through what Daniel might be planning. Each morning he scanned the headlines, bracing himself for a scandal that never came. Daniel seemed to be playing a cruel waiting game, letting William's anxiety simmer with each passing day. Liam and his investigative team worked relentlessly, managing to trace the video to a modest, unremarkable hotel on the city's outskirts. But by the time they arrived, Daniel had already checked out. "He's being cautious," Liam said during one of their frequent calls. "He's moving around constantly. He knows we're trying to find him." As the days dragged on, William's frustration grew. Daniel was nowhere to be found, yet his threat lingered like a dark cloud over everything. Even at the office, the usual pace of work felt overshadowed. Isabella, ever calm and composed, kept operations running smoothly, but she couldn't ignore the strain visible on William's face. One evening, while William sat alone, reviewing countless reports from Liam's team, his phone buzzed. Liam's voice, steady but edged with relief, came through. "We've got something," he announced. "Daniel made a mistake." William sat up, his pulse quickening. "What do you mean?" "One of our people intercepted a message Daniel sent to a media contact. He's trying to sell them a story about you, but it's all lies. He's weaving a narrative out of half-truths, trying to get something printed before anyone can verify his claims." William felt a mixture of anger and relief. So, Daniel's supposed evidence was nothing but fabrication, a calculated attempt to smear his reputation. "What's he trying to claim?" William asked, dreading the answer. "He's alleging financial misconduct," Liam replied, "saying you're involved in illegal dealings with foreign companies and that you're hiding profits offshore. It's baseless, but he's trying to make it sound believable." William let out a slow breath, feeling a weight lift, even if just slightly. "Can we stop him?" "We're already taking action," Liam assured him. "I've reached out to the media outlets he's contacted. We're getting ahead of this with our own story, backed by concrete evidence. Once we reveal the truth, his betrayal, the stolen funds, the offshore accounts he set up, it'll dismantle anything he's tried to build against you." William felt a glimmer of hope. "And what about Daniel? Can we prevent him from trying this again?" "That's the other part of the good news," Liam said, his voice more resolute. "We've gathered enough evidence to take legal action," Liam continued. "With the frozen accounts, financial records, and now his attempted smear campaign, we've got a solid case. Your legal team is ready to proceed. Daniel's out of options." William leaned back in his chair, feeling a sense of relief he hadn't felt in days. "So this is it. We can finally end this." Liam's tone was unwavering. "Yes, we're shutting him down, both legally and publicly." As the call ended, William sat in silence, letting the relief wash over him. Daniel had come at him with everything he had, but in the end, his web of lies had unraveled. William had weathered the storm, and now it was Daniel's turn to face the consequences. That evening, William met with his legal team to finalize their strategy. They were preparing to file a lawsuit against Daniel for defamation, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. It was the final blow to Daniel's schemes. He could no longer hide behind his deceit. With the legal proceedings underway, William felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about protecting himself anymore. It was about holding someone accountable who had betrayed him in the worst way. Daniel had tried to ruin him, but William wasn't about to let him walk away unscathed. The next morning, the news broke. William's legal team had issued a statement detailing Daniel's actions: the financial misconduct, the theft, the attempted framing. Media outlets picked up the story, and within hours, Daniel's name was emblazoned across headlines as the orchestrator of a corporate scandal. From his office, William watched the news unfold, feeling a vindication he hadn't dared to hope for. Daniel had tried to drag his reputation through the mud, but now the truth was out, and it was Daniel who would pay the price. A gentle knock on the door brought him back to the present. Isabella stepped inside, her face a mixture of relief and concern. "I saw the news," she said softly. "It looks like everything's finally coming to light." William nodded, his gaze fixed on the screen. "It's over, or at least, the worst of it. Daniel's going to face the consequences." Isabella stepped closer, standing beside his desk. "You've been through so much these last few months. I'm just grateful you came out on top." William looked up at her, deeply appreciative of her steady support. "I couldn't have done this without you, Isabella. You've been there for me through everything." Isabella smiled, her expression softening. "I'm just glad I could be of help." They stood in quiet solidarity for a moment, the weight of the past few months finally starting to lift. Daniel's threats had been dismantled, and William could finally begin to look forward. But as he gazed at Isabella, he realized that the future held more than just business endeavors. The days following Isabella Hayes' promotion were a whirlwind of new challenges and excitement. Each morning she arrived early, ready to dive into her expanded role. With each day, she grew more confident in her leadership, taking on responsibilities that only a short time ago would have seemed unimaginable. Under William Parker's guidance, she was charting a path in a world she had once viewed from afar. Her contributions quickly caught the attention of her colleagues. With a sharp mind for details and a fresh perspective on the company's strategies, Isabella was transforming her team's approach. Julie, her mentor, guided her through the intricacies of corporate finance and international business, showing her how to anticipate potential pitfalls and navigate the complexities of global operations. Her ideas and insights brought a renewed energy to every discussion. One afternoon, after wrapping up a complex budget review, Julie looked at Isabella with admiration. "You're a natural at this," she remarked, her tone warm and encouraging. "It's as if you've been part of this world for years." Isabella blushed, feeling a deep sense of pride. "I suppose I'm just driven to prove myself," she replied softly. Julie placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't need to prove a thing. You've already shown you belong here." For Isabella, hearing these words meant everything. For so long she had wrestled with self-doubt, but now, standing on equal footing with her peers, she finally felt capable of reaching any goal she set her sights on. One day, William called her into his office. Despite the familiarity they'd developed, she felt a flutter of nerves. After all, this was the man who had not only offered her a second chance but had placed immense trust in her abilities. "Isabella," he began, gesturing for her to sit, his expression thoughtful. "I've been looking at your work over the past few weeks, and I have to say, I'm impressed." Her heart pounded as he spoke. "Thank you, Mr. Parker. I've been trying to give my best." William's smile was warm, full of genuine appreciation. "You've given more than your best. Your insights and your ability to identify and address problems have saved us more than once. You have a rare talent, Isabella." The gratitude in her response was unmistakable. "Hearing that from you means a lot." William's expression turned serious, but his eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "I've been thinking about how we can expand your role here. You've demonstrated a natural aptitude for leadership, and I'd like to see you take on a more permanent position in our senior management team." Her heart raced at his words. "A leadership role?" she asked, nearly breathless. "Yes," William confirmed. "I'd like you to lead our new international expansion project. You'll be developing strategies, analyzing financial projections, and overseeing implementation directly with me. I believe you're ready for this." Isabella's mind raced, her excitement tempered by the enormity of the role he was offering. I'm honored, but are you certain I'm prepared? William leaned forward, his voice filled with conviction. I wouldn't offer this to you if I had any doubt. You've earned it. She looked into his eyes, finding a faith in her that strengthened her own resolve. I'd be honored to lead this project, Mr. Parker. I won't let you down. He smiled, reassured by her determination. I know you won't. Let's start planning next week. For now, take the weekend and recharge. You've earned it. As she left his office, Isabella's head was buzzing with excitement. A leadership position, something she had never dared to dream of, was now her reality. The following days were intense as Isabella dove into her preparations. Working closely with William and Julie, she examined market trends, studied financial reports, and crafted strategies to ensure the company's smooth transition into a new market. She learned how to anticipate challenges, from legal nuances to cultural considerations, that could impact the company's reach. Every new obstacle energized her, reaffirming her belief that she was exactly where she was meant to be. One evening, after a long day of planning meetings, William pulled her aside. They stood by the grand windows, watching the sun set over the city North Star skyline, casting a warm glow over the office. There's something I wanted to tell you, Isabella, he said, his voice reflective. She turned to him, curious. What is it? William took a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. These past months, from Daniel's betrayal to launching this expansion, have been some of the most challenging of my career, and I couldn't have done any of it without you. Isabella blinked, moved by the sincerity in his voice. I'm just doing my part, Mr. Parker. He shook his head. No, you're doing far more than that. You're not just another employee, you're a leader, and I want you to know how much I appreciate that. A swell of emotion filled her. She had never imagined, back when she first warned William of Daniel's betrayal, that she would find herself here working side by side with him to shape the company's future. Thank you, she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. William smiled, his eyes conveying a depth of appreciation. You've earned everything that's come your way, and I'm excited to see where we can go from here. They stood together, looking out at the city below, both feeling the promise of a new chapter. The storm had passed, and the future stretched out before them, filled with possibility. In the years that followed, William Parker and Isabella Hayes worked side by side, overcoming challenges, expanding the company, and building a legacy that went far beyond what either of them could have imagined. They had become more than just colleagues or business partners, they were a team in every sense of the word. Isabella's insights and innovation drove the company to unprecedented success, while William's unwavering support and guidance allowed her to thrive in her role. As their professional relationship deepened, so did their personal connection. They shared late nights in the office, quiet dinners after long days, and moments of unspoken understanding that only grew stronger with time. William found himself looking forward to the moments they spent together, both in and out of the boardroom, and he sensed that Isabella felt the same way. One evening, as they sat together in his office, William looked at Isabella with a newfound clarity. He realized that his life had been transformed, not just by her contributions to the company, but by her very presence. He couldn't imagine his days or his future without her. William knew he had to make a decision that went beyond the company, beyond the boardroom, and beyond the ordinary. He wanted Isabella to be by his side forever, not just as a colleague or a friend, but as his partner in life. A week later, William prepared for what would be one of the most memorable moments of his life. He had planned everything down to the last detail, ensuring that the proposal would be as extraordinary as the woman he was proposing to. He reserved the grandest square in the city for an evening event, inviting close friends, family, and the senior members of the company to witness the occasion. As the sun set over the city, casting a warm glow over the square, William waited for Isabella to arrive, his heart pounding with anticipation. He wore a classic black tuxedo, and in his pocket, a velvet box held a ring that he had chosen with care, a timeless piece that, like their relationship, symbolized strength, commitment, and elegance. Isabella arrived shortly after, looking breathtaking in a soft blue dress that flowed gracefully with each step. She spotted William standing at the center of the square and made her way toward him, a look of curiosity and excitement in her eyes. William, what's all this? She asked, her voice tinged with both wonder and amusement. William took a deep breath, steadying himself. Isabella, he began, reaching for her hand and holding it gently. I brought you here tonight because I have something important to say. Something that I've known in my heart for a long time. Isabella's eyes softened, and she looked up at him with complete attention, sensing the gravity of the moment. From the day you walked into my office, warning me about Daniel, you changed my life, he continued, his voice trembling slightly. At first, you were just a brave young woman who had saved me from a terrible mistake, but over the years you became so much more than that. You became my partner, my confidant, my inspiration. Isabella felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes as she listened, her heart swelling with emotion. Isabella, William said, his voice filled with sincerity, you've shown me a different kind of success. A success that's not just about numbers or business achievements, but about having someone by your side who makes every moment meaningful. You've brought more to my life than I could have ever dreamed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the velvet box, opening it to reveal the stunning ring inside. Isabella gasped softly, her hand covering her mouth as she realized what was happening. Tonight I want to give you something that represents my commitment not only to you, but to everything we've built together, William said, his voice filled with emotion. I want you to be more than my partner in business. I want you to be my partner in life. He took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving hers. Isabella Hayes, will you marry me? Isabella's heart was pounding so hard she could barely hear anything but the sound of her own breath. She looked into William's eyes, seeing the depth of his love and sincerity shining through. A tear slipped down her cheek, and she nodded, her voice choked with emotion. Yes, she whispered, her voice trembling. Yes, William, I'll marry you. The square erupted in applause, and William slipped the ring onto her finger, pulling her into his arms as they shared their first kiss as an engaged couple. Isabella held onto him tightly, feeling a sense of completeness and joy that she had never known before. But William wasn't finished. He took a step back, reaching into his pocket once more and pulling out a second box. This one was larger, and as he opened it, Isabella saw a set of gold keys resting inside. These, he said, handing the keys to her, are the keys to my office and the company itself. I want you to lead the company as the next chairperson, Isabella. You have the vision, the intelligence, and the integrity to take it to places I never could on my own. Just like Iron Man passing his legacy, I'm passing this to you. Isabella stared at him, speechless. William, I don't know what to say. This is beyond anything I ever imagined. William took her hands in his, smiling softly. You've earned this, Isabella. You've made me believe in a future I couldn't have envisioned without you. I trust you with everything I have. Isabella's eyes filled with fresh tears. Thank you, William. I promise I'll make you proud both as your partner in life and as your successor at the company. They embraced once more, surrounded by the applause and cheers of their loved ones and colleagues. It was a moment of pure joy. A celebration not only of their love but of the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. The evening continued with a celebration that stretched long into the night, with laughter, dancing, and toasts to the future. William and Isabella, side by side, accepted the congratulations of friends and family, basking in the glow of their new beginning. From that day forward, William and Isabella faced the world together, building not only a thriving company but a life filled with love, respect, and mutual support. And as they looked out over the city North Star skyline from their home, they knew that their journey was only just beginning together, forever.